You don't have to get on a flight to Asia. You can look in your backyard and say, where have I not gone in the United States, right? I am 40 states in of 50 states. And so I have every intention to complete all 50 states. And I'll tell people that you can have such wild different experiences by just going to a state that you never thought you'd ever go to.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. I have an extra special guest today, all the way in the United States. She is a global communications professional, an entrepreneur, a global storyteller, that's the part that I like, and a lifelong adventurer, and I am sure she is a lot more than that. We're going to find out now. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Angela Betancourt.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I'm excited to be here.
So 30 countries, right?
Yes, I think I'm at 32. I have to count, but yeah, more than 30.
Yeah. How did it start? Did you travel as a child or did you are you a late traveler?
I didn't travel that much as a child. I think I really started traveling quite a bit after undergraduate school. After I finished my bachelor's degree, I started going to New York a lot. I started going to California a lot. And I found myself traveling for work and conferences and things of that nature. And it really inspired me to just keep going. As a teenager, I went to a few places. I remember going to Cuba, where my parents are from. As a teenager, went to Puerto Rico in my late teens, and that was really wonderful and impactful for me. But it was really in my mid-20s that I really started to travel a lot.
Your parents are from Cuba? Were they born in
Yes.
Cuba?
Yes.
And did they travel with you? Was it okay for them to go back?
When I went to Cuba, it was my mom, my aunt, and I. And it was a very interesting time. I think it was, was that in the early 2000s, I think, late 90s? It was a different time there on the island. Um, and it was a very, very eye-opening experience because it was really my first time. I think that was my first time leaving the country, and I think I was 15. And it was my first time going into an environment that was so drastically different from what I was raised, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was very, for example, there was at one point we went for 21 days.
Okay.
And the entire first week that I was there, I remember honestly, I think I was just the biggest brat ever. It's true. I was like, it was the first time I think I ever really experienced being hungry because there's no stores. There was nothing open. During the day, somebody would come by with some bread and some beans and rice. And then the neighbors, I think, had a chicken. And there was no store. There was no convenience. There were no snacks. It was just so bizarre for me. Of course, it was also, traveling back into what felt like the 1950s with vehicles, and it was just very, very strange. And I also remember thinking that our family home, they were building an extension to it. People in my family were just by hand, brick by brick, building an extension to this home. And the room that we stayed in had no window screens. And there were a lot of bugs. And I remember thinking, I can't do the bugs. I mean, I was really just an annoying brat. My second cousin, luckily, also wasn't a fan of bugs. And I ended up sleeping in her room the entire time we were there. But I remember about a week into it, I had to have a pep talk because I realized I'm not going to enjoy this trip at all. I'm not going to really experience this if I don't get with the program. The no running water most times of the day, power out. It was just this whole weird place. But after I had this pep talk with myself and really, experienced what this meant for my mom, having gone back after so many years, then I really started to enjoy myself. I adapted. But that was the first time in my life that I had to adapt in such a serious way. And after that, it turned out to be a really great trip, really fun trip. Yeah.
I think it's amazing because I've been to Cuba. I was there in 1993. And you are absolutely the thing about the snacks. It's not like you can go to a convenience store nearby. I was staying in a hotel, which of course there was plenty of food, but there isn't anything else. And there is a restaurant.
Mhm.
There isn't a restaurant where you can go and eat. But
Exactly.
I'm sure it later in life, or maybe even now, it made you appreciate what you have. I think when you see
Oh,
these things,
100%.
you understand. Because I will go on afterwards because you've also lived in Africa.
Yes.
So
Yes,
when you see,
absolutely.
yeah, when you see how other people, I think we often forget what we have.
Absolutely. It's so easy to take things for granted
Hmm.
until you find yourself in these situations. And that was very similar to my experience having gone to Sierra Leone in 2015 while Ebola was still going on and arriving on this continent I've never been to. So obviously not to Sierra Leone to meet a team of people that I never even saw their face because I got hired through Skype calls. So I never even had video calls. And I went to this entire new continent, which was a dream of mine. And this was in 2015. And when I got there, they had warned me, they had warned me about what it's going to be like at the airport, the steps I have to take, what to expect. I went in there I was extremely excited to begin with, but also very mindful of what they told me. And when I got there, I instantly felt that same feeling I felt when I first arrived in Cuba, those very first few days. I was like, okay, I've been here before, not physically to this location, but I've been in this situation before where I'm going to have a lot of adapting I need to do. And as long as I kept an open mind and that spirit of adventure that I have, I knew it was going to be good. But that was extremely eye opening in terms of I've always believed to be a person that tries not to take things for granted, but it's the little things. It's the little things that you don't realize, right? That kind of get to you at the beginning that surprised me. And so, yeah, living in Sierra Leone, I went there for initially 6 weeks and it turned into 2 years, just to speak about how much I ended up loving that experience. It was hard, but I love the people and the experience. But yeah, it's the things we take for granted. And every time I had a little break and come back to the United States, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to CVS. I'm running I'm going to take a really, really long shower because I know the water is not going to cut out on me. These types of things that you just don't realize how good it is. Right.
Yeah, I think that's very beautiful because I think that those are the things, because I was a tour guide for many years and I have lived in countries which were poor. And I often think back and I think we are so blessed. And why are so many people who live in our part of the world, in the rich part of the world, why are so many people miserable? They have everything. So it's really not about having things, is it?
Correct. It's about appreciating.
Yeah.
It's about appreciating the small things. And I think that's why travel is so important. Travel is such a great teacher because until you put yourself in these situations, you really don't know how good you have it.
Hmm.
Sometimes that's really what it takes. I think one example I always talk about is in Sierra Leone, where our company made us sign all these like waivers, like do not get on a motorcycle, do not do certain activities that are risky. Why? Because the United States, especially for all its faults with their healthcare system, right? And most developed nations, if you get into an accident anywhere in the United States, there's going to be a helicopter probably, then there's ambulances immediately, and then there's at least a big hospital with all types of advanced technologies, and you're probably going to survive, right? You have a better chance of survival. In Sierra Leone, there's no helicopter. And in some areas, there are no ambulances. And if God forbid, you end up in a serious situation, the healthcare is not on the same level. And these are the types of things where it's like, wow, I mean, the United States has a lot of work to do with its healthcare system, but at least there is something,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know, it might bankrupt you, but you'll live. Right. And so it's these types of things that I just really came back to States with such a deeper perspective on. But yeah, I always tell people you should really travel, get out of the country you're in, and just go live someplace else for a little while, or spend, even if it's just a week, someplace very different from where you are, because it really does wonders for your perspective and helps you realize how good we actually have it.
Totally. I'm trying to think now, where is Sierra Leone located? Did you travel around at all in Africa? Did you get to see any neighboring countries?
Not really, because when we got there, Ebola was still going on. And so if you think about Florida in the United States and you draw a line straight across the Atlantic Ocean, you're going to be in the proximity of where Sierra Leone is. It's where the hurricanes come out of. That
Is it
curvature.
West Africa?
West Africa.
Okay. Yes. 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 Yes.
Yes, West Africa, just south of Guinea.
Yeah.
And it's right on the coast.
Yeah.
And Sierra Leone is about the size of Ohio in the United States. Just
Right.
the comparison of size. So fairly, very mild weather, no extreme colds or extreme heat. Definitely no extreme colds. It's pretty much the same temperature year round, but you do have your dry season and your rainy seasons, which are nothing to mess around with. The rainy season there made for like 6 months.
Yeah. So I noted down a global storyteller, and I think the trip to Cuba was already a good story. But what would be your best story? Do you have one? Like, what would be your most memorable trip? Because podcast is called Most Memorable Journeys. Do you think you have one?
I have so many, but I'll share one of my first time going to Europe, because it's such a fun story of, which is very true of my nature of just get out there, take a chance, take a risk, go explore. And so I want to say it was what year was that? 2009, I think, was my first time ever going to Europe. And I knew I wanted to go, and I knew I was going to take some of like my tax refund money and I was going to save it. And I signed up for a Kentucky tour, which is that Australian travel company that takes you to multiple, places, and you just pay and everything's kind of arranged for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I saw this opportunity and I said, I'm going to go do this. I tried to talk a friend of mine to do it, and it just fell through. And so I ended up booking this trip to Europe by myself via Kentucky. And so I flew from Florida to London Heathrow and met with the group of people there, that I was about to go on this 12-day European adventure with. I think it was 12 days or 13 days, and it was 9 countries or something like that. So kind of like a speed tour, lay of the land type of thing. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a really good way to see Europe for the first time, to just kind of get an idea of what it's all about. And I get to see all my favorite landmarks. And so, yeah, I flew to London by myself to go on this tour with 50 other people, 18 to 35, which is their target kind of age group. And it was incredibly life-changing. I remember just not knowing what to expect. And at the end of those days, all of those people, till this day, we're in a Facebook group. 2 of the people on this trip have become dear, dear friends. It's been 10 years, 15 years now, and we're still good friends. We still visit each other in our respective places. And that was a blast. Oh my goodness. Highly recommend for a young person to go to Europe by themselves and meet up with a group of people, because that was wild. What a wild experience.
I think when you travel on your own, you get to speak to other people more, because when you are with a friend, you speak to each other. But when you are on your own, you don't have any choice. So you actually end up making more friends or more acquaintances. In those, like, I think what you did, like 9 countries or whatever it was, just to get an idea, and then you can choose where you want to go back to. I mean, obviously you don't see a country in 1 or 2 days, but you get a taste.
Exactly. You get a taste, and it really did something for my confidence about traveling by myself. Because after that, I went on a few other trips by myself, and it really gave me that confidence. And it also really taught me a lot about humanity and just people you meet all these other travelers, And on this particular European trip, a lot of people were there by themselves. And that was wonderful because that bonded us even more. I'd like to say we were all cut from that same adventure cloth where we are just taking a little bit of a chance, putting ourselves out there in this new environment. And I met so many people that thought a lot like me, that were trying to have adventures like me. And yeah, you are forced to talk to people. You are forced to engage a little bit more deeply in that environment. And
Yeah.
that's a great experience. Yeah.
Did you travel by bus?
We did. We did. Yeah, we got to Heathrow. We got to London, and then that evening there was a little kind of get together at the hotel so you can meet everyone. And the next morning, pack up our stuff, and it was a whole bus tour across Europe, and it was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, in London, I did all the London things, Buckingham, the Big Ben, all of that. And when we got to Paris, we did the Moulin Rouge and the Arc de Triomphe. And now I have been back to Paris 6 times. And I've been to Switzerland a couple of times. And yeah, I think it's a great way to
get a taste,
to get a sense of things, and to just feel a little bit more confident about where you want to go back to and what to do when you get there.
Absolutely. Do you remember which of the 9 countries or whatever they were made the greatest impression on you? Or
every country blew my mind. I mean, wow. And the people, oh my gosh, the wonderful people everywhere that we went. I have to say that I had, ever since I was a little girl, a very dreams of Paris. And so to get to Paris, even though I absolutely love the other places that I've been to, and I can't wait to go back to some of these places, but I've always dreamt of Paris because my last name is French. My birthday is on Bastille Day, July 14, 14 juillet. And I studied French in school, so I speak a little bit of French. And I'd always had this dream of Paris. And so I literally remember when we first stepped foot in Paris, I cried, just happy tears.
Emotional.
It blew my mind to see the Eiffel Tower. It was just, it took my breath away. And then, of course, I had to go see the Mona Lisa, and I wore a beret. It was so hilarious. But it was that I will never forget that feeling to get to Paris for the first time.
That's beautiful. And you have a very famous French family name, Betancourt. Liliane Betancourt is one of the richest women.
L'Oreal.
Yes. I don't know if she's alive, but yeah. But are you related at all?
I'm still trying to find a connection. I'm still trying to find ancestral connections. If anyone from the Betancourt family is watching this,
maybe
reach out.
Yes.
Maybe
there she is. We can connect.
I would love to find a connection. I'll tell a fun story. At one point, one of the times I got to Paris, like after, I think it was the second or third time I went to Paris, because when I was traveling from Sierra Leone to Miami, it was on Air France through Paris. And so sometimes I had these very long layovers. And I remember one day I booked an Uber to get around to go to something. I don't remember what I was doing, but I booked one of the fancy ones because I was like, we're in Paris. I had a beautiful outfit on, and I booked this very, very fancy, I think it was like a Mercedes Uber. And the driver kept asking me questions about my last name and who I was. And I was very vague, and it was hilarious because I think he thought I was someone, famous or something. I was throwing my little French out there. I had my big glasses on. It was hysterical. But no connection to the Betancourt family that I know of. But I do have on my father's side, through some of the research that I've been doing, there is a very interesting story there with my father's lineage. That's very interesting.
Well, that's the interesting part about coming from where you come from, because everybody came from somewhere. I mean, not in Cuba, but especially in the US, everybody, unless you're a Native American, you came from somewhere, there's some kind of
absolutely
background. Yeah. Now, what other areas of the world do you like?
I went to Japan for the first time last summer, and wow, Tokyo, Japan, incredible. I can't wait to go back there. Asia's an area that I really want to explore more of. I did go to Singapore when I was in grad school. We went there for a program, and at the end of that program, I took a couple of days. I was going to stay in Singapore for those extra days that I had booked. But then I realized how expensive Singapore is. And I was like, this is not going to be the most sustainable option. And so I kid you not, it was a Wednesday after 10 days in Singapore. I still had about 4 days left in this before my flight. And I said, how far away is Thailand from here? And it was an hour flight. And so on Wednesday, I decided that I'm going to Bangkok for the rest of my time. And I booked the flight the next day. I booked the hotel from the airport. And I went to Thailand by myself. I flew to Bangkok by myself. That was another wild experience that I highly recommend people do. And it was so much more affordable than staying in Singapore those extra 4 days. And what I love about the Singapore airport, I'm so impressed with that airport, is they have these big lockers. And so I just put my big suitcase in those lockers at the airport, took my little carry-on, flew to Bangkok, spent a couple of days there, flew back, got my big suitcase and flew back to United States. And so,
Amazing.
yeah, Bangkok is spectacular. So a lot more of Asia I'd like to explore.
Wonderful. And I think you already said it at the beginning, because I was going to ask you, what do you recommend people to do? Because people should just go somewhere. And I think,
Yes.
so because the comfort zone, I always say, because I'm a life coach and a hypnotherapist, the comfort zone is the place where your dreams go to die. If you just stay there all the time, you have to take a leap of faith sometimes, even if
You do. Absolutely. And, not everyone has to be like me. You don't have to get on a flight and go to Thailand by yourself. I always tell people, especially in the United States, that it's such a massive country. It's such a huge country, and there's so much to offer in other states. And so I always tell people, you don't have to get on a flight to Asia. You can look in your backyard and say, where have I not gone in the United States? Right? I am 40 states in of 50 states. And so I have every intention to complete all 50 states. And I'll tell people that you can have such wild different experiences by just going to a state that you never thought you'd ever go to. And that's a good start. Go there, because it doesn't require a passport, or it doesn't require you to speak another language. It doesn't require, it doesn't ask a lot of you, but it's a good start, right? And you can figure out ways to do so affordably. I always want people to, I think a lot of people that are curious about travel, the first thing that usually comes to mind is budget, right? Well, flights are expensive, hotels are expensive, this is expensive. And that's true. But there are places you can go, and there are ways that you can go about it where it doesn't have to break the bank, right? There are ways to do it. And I also think someone once said to me, my gosh, you travel so much. How do you afford it? And I said, well, what was the last big purchase that you made? And they said, a concert. And I said, how much did you spend on that to go to that concert? They said $600. And I said, you spent $600 to go to a concert? Okay, not judging. Good for you. Concerts are fun. But do you know how many places you could have gone for $600? Even just in the United States, some places in South America. I went to Guatemala with a friend of mine. And let me tell you, our hotel was $13 a night. Our flight, we didn't pay for the flight because my friend worked for the airline. So we flew standby. And she's like, let's go somewhere. And I said, yeah, but where can we go that no one is really going to, so that we can get on the flight? Because when you fly standby, you have to have open seats, you have to wait. And I was like, we try to go to New York on standby. It's not going to happen. Everybody's going to New York. But I was like, what about Guatemala? So she looked, and it was wide open. And this was like a Monday. And on that Thursday, we went to Guatemala. But I looked up the ticket prices, and a lot of carriers, especially if you're on the East Coast of the United States, but in other areas too, you can go for about $300 round trip on this flight to Guatemala. And we literally found a hotel for $13 a night at the base of a volcano. And the dollar was $1 was 6 quetzales at the time. I mean, our breakfast cost us like $6 and we ate like it was a feast.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, do people know about this? Do people know about this? Because this is incredible. The food was amazing. The people are amazing. The hotels were super. The most expensive hotel at the time is called Casa Santo Domingo. It's an old monastery from, I want to say, 15th, 16th century that's been turned into this luxury hotel. And there it was like 280 a night.
Fine.
Where can you spend a luxury hotel for
Yeah.
280 a night?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just like, there are ways to travel. There are places you can go where if you just do a little bit of the research, save a little bit of the money, it doesn't have to break the bank. So
I so agree with you. And I think it's all about setting your priorities, and
yes,
with people, I see that also when that completely different story now, but about your mental health, because people have money for their nails, for their hair, for their skin, for their, I don't know what, for their Botox. But when it comes to mental health, no. No, that's too expensive. Everything is always too expensive. And traveling, I think, is also for your mental health because it opens up
yes.
your horizon. It makes you a better, maybe it makes you a
Mhm.
better person because, you understand, first of all, you appreciate what you have, depending on where you go. And, you become more open-minded.
Absolutely. 100%. You raised such a great, important point about travel for mental health because when you force yourself to be outside of yourself and now you're focused on others, you're focused on your environment, you're focused on experiencing new things, it gets you out of your head. And sometimes that clarity of just being out of your head and in a new environment, as you just mentioned, it gives you a new appreciation. It helps you be more self-aware of the good things that you do have. It makes you more gratitude, it helps you practice gratitude. I tell you, mental health is so important to me, and travel really does help me with that. It just gives me so much joy, and it just really opens my eyes and gives us all a better sense of connection and of humanity that I think is so important to our well-being. And I agree with you. I spent years without a television. I kind of just cut up on things on my laptop. And I kid you not, every single time it was like, oh, this, flat screen TV. And I had a small apartment or wherever I was at the time. And it was like, okay, this TV is on sale for $250. Okay, I'm gonna save for that TV so I can watch things on my TV and not on my laptop. And then my friend's like, let's go somewhere. And I'm like, done. And no TV. And I didn't have a TV for years, probably 5, 6, 7 years. I did not own a television. I caught up on things on my laptop on demand. I definitely wasn't paying for cable. And I just paid for my internet. And that's because I was prioritizing
Mhm.
the experience over and over and over again over the $200 or $300 for a television. And you're absolutely correct. It is about our priorities and what we're going to value. And for me, and I like to inspire people, encourage people to really think about the experiences of our lives, the memories that we make, the magical moments that can only happen when we're focused on those experiences, especially experiences that we love. Um, experiences that we do with our loved ones is and our friends. Those are I mean, I still talk about stories of my first time in Venice so many years later. I'm not talking about whatever it was that I purchased, whatever item it was that I purchased, however long ago that it was, because those are not the things that stay with us. And I think I have a young son, and I talk to my husband all the time about, let's really, I want him to have that. First of all, he's already traveled with us. So we took him to Japan. He's going to be 2 in July, and he's already been on more than 30 flights. And it's true because we also do a lot of domestic travel to visit family in Tennessee and New York, all these other places. So he has these little short flights, but we took him to Japan and people were like, what? I'm like, oh yeah. we're taking him, and he's maybe not going to remember, but he'll have pictures, and we created special memories while we were there. And I think that the feeling of that stays with you, even if the actual memory of the things that we did doesn't. I'd like to believe that the feelings he experienced there are going to stay with him. He knows his way around the airport. He knows, he waves at everyone on the plane when we're getting on. He's a great traveler. And we are very proud of that. Because we really value that as part of his experience, but also our experience as a family. We want it to be about going interesting places, meeting. I do not want my son to be raised in a bubble. I want him to be exposed to all kinds of people that look different from him, that sound different from him, that dress different from him. That's so important.
And I can tell you from my experience, because my kids are grown up, and I did exactly the same thing. I took them everywhere, and they became very seasoned travelers, and they have both lived abroad. My son was a year in China, and my daughter did an internship in Hong Kong, and so on, because of how they started off. So you're doing the right thing. And we are already way towards the end. I want to end this with, what would you do if money was no object and you could leave tonight or tomorrow? Where would you go?
Oh, that's a fun question. Okay. Money was no object, and we can leave tomorrow.
If you found out that you're related to the Betancourt family and you're getting a lot of money, what would you do?
That's such a great question. Oh my gosh, how fun. Okay. If we could leave tomorrow. So, so what month are we in? Basically, it's May already tomorrow, which is wild. I don't know where the year is going. Okay, so May. I mean, we'd go someplace we've never been. For starters, I think that would be great. What a great question. Oh my goodness, there's so many places I want to go. Probably Egypt. I was just talking to someone in Egypt who's just this wonderful, wonderful woman who works for Space for Humanity organization. And she's about to have another baby. And she was telling me about, that Egypt is a very kid-friendly place to go. And I thought, that's amazing. So I also have dreams of Egypt. And so if money's no object, and I'm related to the Betancourt family, I would love to fly into Cairo and spend maybe like a month there or whatever. And I want to do the Nile cruise ship, like the multi-day Nile River fancy cruise ship. And I want to go to all of the pyramids, and I want to ride a camel, and I want to experience Cairo city and go to spice shops. And I will, because I'm not into like tchotchkes and things like this. I don't want to buy like a snow globe or like a magnet or something. Maybe for my mom, she'll be mad at me if I don't get her that. But I want to find like some beautiful jewelry, like ancient Egyptian looking jewelry. Oh, that's what I want to do. I want to be Egyptian.
Okay, I think
when we go to Egypt.
We're putting this out in the universe.
Yes.
And who knows, Angela, maybe you'll be on a plane to Egypt very soon. But in the meantime, I want to thank you for spending time with me on recording an episode for Most Memorable Journeys.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you do this podcast, because I think it is it's of service. I think this is a podcast that's of service to people, and it helps to bring these new perspectives and ideas and conversations out into the world that are so necessary. And with your incredible background, you bring such a unique angle to the conversations because of your background. And so I just want to say thank you for this. And thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute delight, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.